I'm just going to jump into this. All right, coming to you from Glad Tidings and the Embassy of Heaven campus in Northern California. We have a very special guest and a man that I deeply love and I'm proud to know. And that's the People's General, Michael Flynn.
Thank you very much.
And we've had him here before. I have spent a lot of time that he doesn't know hosing people down on the internet and defending my friend, Michael Flynn. But anyway, Michael, it's really
Oh my
good
God,
to
thank
have
you
We
so
love
much.
you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And I just wanted to talk to you a bit about this. When they came out with the COVID call, that was right out of hell, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It was an evil thing. And we were just coming back from a missionary trip in India. And
Wow.
they said, oh, they're going to shut down all the churches. And I thought, no, they ain't going to shut down all of them.
Right.
So anyway, I was just praying in my office and this came to mind, just like it is. As free Americans, we will not comply with unconstitutional medical or political mandates that violate our basic rights. Now, General, I expected thousands of people to want one of these to put up in their shop,
Yeah.
right? On the church
Stores,
doors.
churches.
We put
everywhere.
them up on every door around here. And you know what I found? I found that people were so out of touch with their basic rights as an American citizen that they were afraid to put these up. So I would say in this county, I would say about 1 out of 20 doors would put them up. I went to every door to just say, hey, I made a poster for you, put it up, and defend your rights
Yeah.
as a free American. Now, they didn't do that, and I have my thoughts as to why, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Wow.
What is it with Americans that they're afraid to stand behind their basic constitutional rights?
Yeah. There's a phrase, and you can interpret it both sides. And the phrase says, 2% of the passionate will defeat 98% of the indifferent 100% of the time. And so where America stands right now is we are in that 98% indifferent. I mean, really, and that's a big number, 98%. Maybe it's not quite 98%, but the phrase means a lot. So if there's a passionate few that are willing to restrict, and that passionate few can be in the federal government, right? If you look at it from the opposite side, I feel like you and I are in the passionate few who are standing up
Bam.
for our rights, right?
Yeah.
And what we're looking to do is we're looking to encourage the 98% of the indifferent that are out there, because it's like you say, you went around and you were saying, hey, we can't have this attack on our rights, our basic human rights, not just our own Bill of Rights and the kinds of things that we talk about. But we need to have more people get out of that indifferent many and join this passionate few.
Right.
When we think about our founders, they were the 2%, right? And then those that have stood the test of time through the course of history, even going back, even before the United States was created, there's always been a passionate few that have stood up against the demands of tyranny, right? And the demands of tyranny have tended to reign throughout history. But this is the one thing about this, that in the long arc of history, good always prevails over evil, always. Right. The challenge is that it takes time to overcome evil sometimes. And what evil does is evil doesn't attack the weak. Okay?
Right.
Evil has the weak. They're able to find, those that are indifferent, those that are saying, not me,
defeated.
I'm not. They're already defeated.
Yeah.
They're already defeated.
Yeah.
What evil tries to do, and why they go after, guys like me and you, and it's because they see us as part of that passionate few that are strong in our belief system and in our values, and if they can destroy us, right? If evil can really take us down, and they work overtime. Yeah. And people need to understand that evil exists on this earth.
Yes.
We talk about heaven and hell and all the different places in between, but earth has evil.
Oh, boy.
And and here we are on a Glad Tidings campus. I mean, not just this beautiful church, but this campus where you have you've got God's children here. What we stand for. Now I'll bring it to the reality of being an American, and I think that you probably know this better than I do, but I hear something, and then I go and try to learn more about it.
Right.
So, a very famous president, and of course, the governor of California, Ronald Reagan, he used the phrase while he was president. He used this phrase to describe America, this shining city on a hill.
Right.
He actually added the word shining, which I didn't know at the time, and I've listened to it. I've listened to that speech a bunch of times because I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
But then I went back in time and I said, I typed that phrase in to research it.
Yeah.
And so another pastor, a minister by the name of Winthrop, again, 2% of the passionate will defeat
John Winthrop.
John Winthrop, first really mayor of Boston.
Yeah.
And in his speech to his congregation, basically about to embark on ships crossing the dangerous Atlantic, he gives a great speech, great sermon, and you can go look it up. It's a wonderful sermon. And in it, he talks about we're going to find a city on a hill. Yeah. He actually is the guy that coined the term New England. Yeah. He coined the term New England. We're going to go find, we're in search of a New England, I think is the way he said it. Yeah. And so New England, right? We have New England. He ended up in Boston, going into Boston Harbor. They didn't even know what it was at that time. They just know it was a New England, right? He became the first mayor, under the crown, but looking for something new because they were being persecuted for their Christian beliefs. Right. And anyway, so then I dug deeper because I'm like, well, it's an amazing speech, or an amazing sermon. Yeah. And he to me is one of those 2% of the passionate that was going to not comply with these mandates. He definitely would have been, right? Yeah. In fact, he was so strong that he wasn't going to comply with the crown in England, and he was going to take the risk with his congregation who believed so much in him. So to me, those are the 2%. Oh yeah. And they will defeat, they'll defeat the indifferent 100% of the time. Right. And it took time. In his case, that was 1630. So you're talking about another 150 years before our Constitution was ratified, right? Yeah. 1789, I think, right? So, I mean, then you dig back into his sermon and you say, okay, where did that come from? Yeah. Because it was like brilliant, right? Yeah. And where it comes from is it comes from Matthew. Right. So, city on a hill comes from Matthew. Now, maybe Matthew, and I think it's like Matthew, I'm guessing, but let's just say 5:14. Yeah. So Matthew talks about a city on a hill. Well, when you look at where Jerusalem is, it is on a hill. Right. And I do believe that Matthew was talking about, what we now know as modern day Israel, right? So, and Jerusalem, which has been there for, since the beginning of time. Yeah. And it was a city on a hill. That the people at the time, and as Matthew wrote about it, they were going to go discover the city on a hill. And that was going to be where really the center of humanity on earth. This is my interpretation. People can, biblical scholars can say whatever they want about it. This is my interpretation. Yeah. So when we think about that, and so now then you take it and you stretch it, right? Because again, we're talking about whether I comply or not with mandates from a tyrannical government that's going to make me decide about my health, going to make me decide about what I know to be true, at least from our biblical values and principles, what we were given as human beings, and what we're given in our own Bill of Rights. Yeah. But where I'm at now is that, like I say, these rights that we're given, they are promises that we make to each other. Right. And maybe you've heard me say in other times I've spoken about. So our founders, if you go from, this city on a hill, which was Jerusalem, Israel. God chose that. That's what Matthew was really telling us. He chose that ground. That's where he's from, right? And that's where, here we are talking, all this stuff, right? But when Winthrop was on that dock and he's preaching that sermon, they were going to another land and they were choosing God. Yeah. Okay? God chose a place on this earth, Jerusalem, right? City on a hill. Right. People that ended up coming to this country, we chose God. Right. You know, America chose God.
Right.
And when we did, we were fulfilling the promises in, frankly, the Ten Commandments that we find in the fulfillment of those promises in the Bible.
Right.
So we then interpreted that. So, 150 years later, we've got the founders, and the founders all studied. They went back and they studied every religion known to man. They studied, they were incredibly studied, and many of them were very young. Very young.
Yeah, they were.
It was huge. I mean, unbelievable. So, but they made sure that they didn't miss something. They really, really were thoughtful. And the very first thing that is in these promises that we make to each other about complying, right? People, and these guys have heard me say it because I talk to the audiences about it all the time. When I say, what's the First Amendment? Everybody goes with freedom to speak. But there's 5 parts to the First Amendment. 5 parts. Most people don't know that. So the very first part, 1.1, right? So 1.2 is the freedom to speak. 1.1 is the freedom of religion.
Yeah.
Freedom to practice your faith.
Right.
They didn't say the freedom to be a Christian or the freedom to be a Catholic or the Jew or whatever. They just said, but the more important, sort of the more strategic 60,000 foot level is that they argued about making sure that religion, so when this tyrannical government starts to tell us, because they've already begun, that there's a clear separation of church and state.
Yeah, right.
No, there's not.
No.
And the idea of the creators in our Declaration of Independence, and this idea about in our very first amendment, they argued about every single word in those amendments, like they argued about every single word in the Constitution.
Yeah.
And the fact that they argued and they gave serious thought to the very first component of the very first amendment to be talking and describing religion.
Yeah.
Talk about 2% of the passionate.
Huge.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So when we look at this kind of stuff, and I don't know if I'm going on and on here, but the key words here are free, right?
Yeah, right.
Another key word is Americans, right? And this idea of basic rights.
Yeah.
Basic rights. These are not just rights in our Bill of Rights. These are human rights.
Basic human rights.
Human rights. I mean, I feel fine. So you're going to tell me that I have to do something that is not going to make me healthy?
Or something I don't believe in?
Or something I don't believe in, right? Like
conscience.
if I have a religious, component in my body that says, because of religious reasons, that I'm not going to go in that direction, right? And maybe that direction has to do with, the way they some of these people, these progressive folks think about life,
right?
Or some ingredient that I don't want to put into my body,
right?
I mean, these are decisions that we should be able to make as Americans, right?
Absolutely.
That's what makes us different. That's what makes us. That's what makes this beautiful country of ours. And I, like I say, I call it an experiment.
Yeah.
This is an experiment, and it's an experiment in democracy defined as a constitutional republic.
Right.
And because of that, we have responsibilities as citizens to stand up for those.
Right.
So let's not be 98% of the indifferent.
Right.
Let's be 2% of the passionate.
Yeah.
Because if we are, we can win 100% of the time.
Now that what you said about an experiment, that we also have as a given, as we sort this out, the fact that the experiment worked wonderfully while we were in sync with the foundational principle. It says we started to move away from it, that the things begin to unravel. Let me say one more thing, because you went back through the history from Reagan back to Matthew. But let me share this. I think Matthew was, in the Gospel of Matthew, of course it was Christ that was saying it, but I think it goes back to the prophet Isaiah thousands of years earlier, and he said that in the last days, the transition of the ages, the mountain of the Lord's house will be established above every other authority, and people will come from the nations to say, if we come to the mountain of the Lord's house, will you teach us the ways of your God? And you and I were talking on the way over here about food sovereignty and about education and about the simple fact in Northern California, we by conscience can't submit ourselves to the authorities anymore.
right.
Because they're all corrupt.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing, and we talked about, the Light of Life, the Wellness Center, and all the different things that we're up to. That's what we're going back to, is the mountain of the Lord's house, or that is typical, of course, of authority, because all the kingdoms were built on mountains, but the authority of the Lord's house being established above every other authority. And people coming from the nations and saying, will you teach us the ways of your God? And so, I took a lot of flack. I know you did, and of course, my arena is much, much smaller than your arena. But the point is, if you stand for truth these days, you will be attacked. And that's why we're here tonight. The People's General is showing his film, Flynn. I'm really anxious to see it. But the byline is about having enough courage
deliver the truth,
to
whatever
deliver the truth, whatever the cost. And that takes courage. I know you know that. But I hope everybody else knows that too. If we're going to make our mark today in any forum, we have to have enough courage to deliver the truth, whatever the cost. And so I just want to thank you for being here. The People's General, we love you. I know a lot of people shoot arrows at you, but we love
Yeah,
you.
it's
We got
okay.
your back.
Shield. What's that shield? Ephesians.
Come on,
Ephesians
the shield of
11.
faith. But wherever you are, whatever you're doing, remember, it is not time to pussyfoot around. It's not time to fuss around. It's time to roar. And so it's time for the lions to come out of the savannas
Right.
and roar. So
God bless everybody.
Thank you.